Ten things to know about the revelations that Trump's lawyers tried to influence Flynn. Michael Flynn's dealings with Robert Mueller erupted back into the headlines this week, after court documents disclosed he had about communications he had with people around Donald Trump related to his cooperation. The revelations had some nuance around Flynn's time as a cooperator and raised several new questions about. Here are 9 questions to get up to speed. People connected. The Mueller report mentions a voicemail that fits that description. The report says in the call, Trump's attorney obliquely referenced Flynn's cooperation, asked for a heads if. Reported on Thursday that this call was made by John Dowd, who was one of Trump's personal attorneys. Dowd could not be Jay Sekulow, Trump's only other personal attorney handling the Russia investigation at that time, told CNN that he did not leave the voicemail referenced in the Mueller report. Other lawyers around Mueller's team didn't say whether this phone call amounted to criminal obstruction of justice committed by the president. But Mueller didn't offer a judgment in his report or in the court filings about how Dowd approached Flynn. There is no indication if Mueller believed he could investigate Trump's attorney, and if he believed that the call did cross the legal threshold for obstruction, Mueller or another prosecutor could have brought charges. The investigation, it's not entirely clear why Mueller didn't analyze Dowd's decision to make the phone call. Was it that A footnote suggests Mueller determined any interaction Trump may have had with Dowd about Flynn as confidential and protected by law. Because Mueller ends his analysis of the voicemail inconclusively, saying he couldn't determine if the president directed Dowd to make the call. Because Mueller, a former FBI director, homicide prosecutor, U.S. attorney, and Department of Justice top brass, cared a great deal about investigating obstruction of justice. The special counsel, Mueller, also wasn't afraid of going after liars whose false statements could have muddled the investigation. In all, 2 other defendants in the Mueller probe have been charged with obstruction, and both of their cases are still unresolved. Those defendants are, there was more communication with Flynn than the one voicemail described in the Mueller report. Court filings indicate that there were multiple. The Mueller report highlighted a few examples. Before Flynn flipped, the court filings also said someone connected. The voicemail Trump's lawyer left for Flynn's lawyer was highlighted in the version of the Mueller report made public on April 18. The report was but scrutiny of Flynn is far from over. He has not yet. The Washington Post had sued to make public some information that prosecutors put under seal in the Flynn case, and Sullivan agreed. That led to the Trump weighed in on the situation with a tweet Friday morning, saying it. The president didn't mention the questionable back-channeling between his lawyer and Flynn's lawyer. But his tweet was missed. It's generally against Justice Department policy to publicly reveal ongoing cases, so it's no surprise that the investigation was underway before it was common. While Trump wasn't told by the Justice Department about the Flynn probe before taking office, he received at least 2 prominent warnings against hiring Flynn as National Security Advisor. President Barack Obama, senior Justice Department officials eventually warned the Trump White House about Flynn's conduct, primarily that he lied to the FBI about his contacts with the Russian ambassador. The administration, it appears several more revealing documents about Flynn may be public by June. Sullivan ordered. Mueller quoted the voicemail in his report, though he used many ellipses to clip sentences. And the full text of, and on top of all this, Sullivan has asked for the Justice Department to make public the parts of the Mueller report related to Flynn that are still redacted. The deadline is May